y'all, thanks so much for swinging by. I recently read Alphacore #1 from Riververse Comics, and I really wanted to give you guys my thoughts. To be completely honest, I read it almost immediately after I got it in the mail a few weeks ago. Life's just been a little crazy, so it just took me a little longer than I wanted it to start filming this. Now, once I started, I couldn't stop, and I finished it in one sitting. I was just completely invested and hooked that I was almost at a total loss when I realized that there weren't any more pages left. Anyway, let's talk details. I love it. From the very first page, you're kind of rocked with these beautiful, deep hues of color. It's dramatic and eye-catching, and the colors really add an intensity to each scene. Now, there are a few panels with some inconsistencies with minor character designs and details. However, it doesn't really take you out of the story, and I really only noticed upon my second read-through, basically when I was looking more critically for the review. One of the side characters just has a goatee on one of the panels, but later he actually has like a beard with the goatee. And some panels are colored one way for the characters' uniforms, and then later the color combos are done kind of differently for the same uniform and character. But in the end, these are very minor in my opinion, and they don't really take me out of the story at all. And at least for the uniforms, it just gives me more motivation to be able to be more creative for my cosplays. So overall, for the artwork, I give it a 9 out of 10. So I really enjoy the dynamic between Brian and Ingrid, as well as with the crew and their home base. There's really a good balance in tone of each scene, as well as a whole throughout, where the jokes are few but very well timed. It definitely feels like it's real and believable conversations for most situations. There are a few places where you're meant to somewhat misunderstand a character who basically has like a momentary lisp, but I feel like it was a bit too much interchanging of letters to where it took a little longer than I'd like to decipher what he was trying to say. I could also just feel that way because I wanted to quickly continue reading the story. But overall, the dialogue is pretty great. Even during action scenes, there's not a lot, but what is there is very well placed. Overall, I'd probably give this a 9 out of 10 as well. Jam-packed, full of it, and I couldn't get enough. Scenes in the beginning are a bit short, but they do establish some basic character traits for a couple of the characters, as well as show the city and how the citizens kind of feel about the exeps. The heroes aren't too overpowered, and they do struggle through some of their fights, where they end up needing some help, even if small, to ultimately win the battle. The fights are easy to follow, even when jumping from one to another between the panels, and the ultimate fight toward the end is not what you'd really expect, but the stakes are very high. You definitely feel very invested until the very end. Honestly, I don't have anything to complain about. I give the action a 10 out of 10. I loved getting a feel for some new side characters that get introduced here, both villains and supporting characters. One villain is certainly a standout favorite for me, where he seems to just be all out evil without remorse, and you only get a small taste of his motivations, really. Then there is another villain that actually took Brian down a peg or two, as he did have to struggle in a fight with him. I won't spoil it, but how the fight ended was kind of unexpected. There is one supporting character who did stand out the most to me, and he surprised me in his role in shaping a bit of Ingrid's character traits. He has a simple story throughout the book, but serves a very impactful purpose that I really wasn't expecting at all. So be prepared to be a little surprised. Brian is not one to waste time in making decisions. However, the quick action that he tends to take does cause trouble, as you soon learn in the beginning of the story. Although most of the time he's able to brush off the reprimands, there is one flippant decision that does lead to some pretty dire consequences. In fact, had he went through proper protocol when it comes to police work, the entire situation could have been avoided. I'm actually kind of curious to see how he handles the consequences and the knowledge that had he followed standard operating procedure, there would not be the damages and losses that happened as a result. I actually really hope it's addressed and expanded upon in the next book because I'm curious to see how that's handled or if it was even something that was thought about in the initial processes. Ingrid is more level-headed and calculating than Brian, and this can cause some infighting between the two of them, where Brian is quick to move into action. She stops to analyze the potential consequences of their actions. So her and Brian constantly are butting heads due to these differing personality traits, yet they do both have an ego and kind of a pride streak in their own way. Ingrid jumps to conclusions at times due to her pride in being an except, and she does have a temper that is controlled but not far from the surface. She's very procedural, even when in the middle of fights with villains, but you don't really get a lot of fighting for her, so I definitely want to see more from her in the next book because I don't really have a good understanding of what her character is. Except in the end, there is kind of a great scene where she lets loose a little bit for very valid reasons. Braxwell might just be my favorite. He doesn't waste time talking and just gets the job done. He's definitely the strong silent type, which certainly makes me want to know more about him. And you can tell that there's an intelligence behind every action that he takes, even when he's fighting. He just wants as much information beforehand so he can handle the job swiftly. He's definitely one that you'll want to watch. Michael and Lillian definitely have an interesting dynamic in their relationship as well, where Michael is definitely laid back. Lillian is uptight and kind of serious. Michael's a bit of a screw up. However, his plans sometimes do go through kind of from sheer luck or a little bit of help from Lillian. We don't get a lot of information from them, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens going forward, especially with the end of the book and what happened with Alphacore. I'm really interested in learning a lot more about them, and maybe they can have their own book. The overall story is cohesive and pretty entertaining. It is kind of fast-paced, but easy to follow, draws you in until the very end. It's definitely a page-turner, leaves you wanting more, and I found it to be very gripping. It grabs you from the very beginning and takes you on this journey all the way until the end. And once I got to the end, I found myself hoping to find more pages hidden somewhere. So overall, you might think that you can predict the next scene or a future for a specific character, but definitely be prepared for surprises and potential disappointments along the way. As you can probably guess, I give Alphacore #1 a 9 out of 10. I cannot wait for the next installment so I can see how the characters have developed and grown from their mistakes and the resulting fallout from their decisions. I highly recommend you check this out if you haven't already. There is less than a week left in the campaign, so you only have until January 20th to get any campaign-only items. I have linked to the campaign down below in the description of the video, so definitely go check that out and grab anything that you think you'd like. I hope you guys enjoyed my thoughts. Do leave me a comment down below because I'm interested in seeing how you feel about the book itself as well as my review. Also, stay tuned for more videos like this. I plan on doing some reviews for other books, not just from the Rippaverse, but I definitely do need to catch up on telling you how I feel about ISOM. So feel free to give me any suggestions for anything that you'd be interested in hearing my thoughts on as well. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button on your way out, and take care, y'all.